So we are recording this keynote, and if you if you have a question that's more sensitive, please email us or message us privately and we'll answer it. Welcome today to our online seminar 4. It's the 4th in our series of 6 this week, celebrating International Coaching Week with the ICF, and we have been so fantastically excited about the turnout and the quality of the interactions that we're having in our sessions this week. So yeah, really happy to see you again, and excited for what the Q&A is going to bring up today. I have had some emails from people who have said that they would like to learn a little bit about our answers with those that we haven't had a chance in the webinars to address the questions of. So I'm going to put together at the end of the week, when we review the chat, we'll put something together with all the different Q&A and ensure that we've answered them all. And I'll post something and link it out so everyone can actually see the discussions that have taken place offline as well. So please keep adding your lovely, fantastic questions. It's been, I think, one of the highlights, especially from us as the training team. It's been the highlights have been actually hearing your questions and being able to respond to them. We will be sharing the recording for all of the seminars in one email with you at the end, because we feel that there's a lot of people that have been attending all of them. So it keeps the communication clean and it enables us to share all of the recordings with everyone. In our chat, I'll be sharing the links to our LinkedIn, the link to the NLP course, the link to the feedback form throughout the presentation today. So please check the chat and click on those links to be able to find more information about what we're presenting. As you all know by now, we're offering a certificate for those that are attending all 6 sessions. So that we can match your registration, please make sure that your name in the meeting matches your ICF membership name and is also the same name as what you will have on your certificate. We can offer you ICF mentorship hours, mentoring hours through these. So if you are interested in you need extra mentoring hours, please let us know and we will be able to arrange that with you. So please send me an email if you need mentoring hours. We are not an ICF chapter, so therefore we're not offering CCEUs through this. So it's just purely the mentoring hours. So like always, post your questions in the chat. At the end, I will be selecting the most relevant questions for our panel today. If we run out of time, we'll connect with you directly. This Human Aspects and Coaching mini course provides a thematic insight of our NLP Essential course, which we are launching for the first time in English online in June. So please scan the QR code that's on the slides. It will take you to the course. I'll also send you the link as well in the chat. It'll be fantastic to see you back in June attending our full course. We may go over the hour. If we do, you're welcome to stay or go according to your schedule. We found that there has been quite a big demand to carry on the discussions, so we made the decision to be a little bit relaxed about the end of the course, but it will be in the recording, so if you do miss it, you can watch the recording for the last bit of the Q&A. A little bit about Purposeful Innovators. Purposeful Innovators is a non-profit social enterprise registered in the UK under Companies House. We're a membership of professionals across all fields who have dedicated their life work to human and social development, the environment and sustainable finance. We're governed by a voluntary global board of 7 directors and have 80+ pioneer members who are all working towards a common mission, which is to revolutionize how the world works. Our motto is no compromise to planet, to people and to profit. My name's Rania Laing. I'm the founder of Purposeful Innovators. I'm a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, a PCC, ICF coach, and I also sit on the global board of trustees for the ICF Foundation. A little bit more about our International Institute for Research and Human Development. We are accredited for adult education by the Ministry of Education in Luxembourg, accredited by IAS for ISO 9001-2015, and accredited by the International Coaching Federation for Level 1 and Level 2 coach training. The Institute is a professional training centre headquartered in Luxembourg, and it specialises in certifying continuing professional training in coaching, NLP, leadership and management, and the Enneagram. About your speaker today, Wendy Shaw is an experienced coach, trainer and facilitator. She is passionate about empowering others and has almost 30 years experience in learning and development. She's a certified trainer of mBIT, NLP, timeline therapy, hypnosis, and she is an experienced executive coach and member of the ICF. Wendy delivers elective programs for EMBA students around the globe and is also the BNI Master Trainer for the UAE and Qatar. Welcome, Wendy.
Thanks,
Over
Rania.
to you. Oh, sorry. Let me just quickly say that we are joined by the rest of the team, which is Mario. Hello, Mario. Hello, Natalia and Tracy. Over to you, Wendy.
Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everybody, for those continuing your journey. And if this is your first seminar of the week, then welcome to you as well. So if we move on to what we're going to be covering today. So the next one, please. We've had some technical challenges this morning. And on the next slide, we'll give you an overview of where we're heading. So I'm going to start this morning by defining our clients' emotions. What are we talking about? And our role as the coach is really to help our clients explore their emotions, demystify them, and help them create an awareness, because you cannot change anything outside of your awareness. And for us to be effective in helping our clients change and improve some of their responses, then that's going to help us be more effective. Also, some considerations for the coach as well. I think it's really important that we manage our own state. Technical challenges is a great example. I also took a phone call about 20 minutes ago, and it wasn't the best phone call, if you know what I mean. So preparing ourselves as a coach to be in the best state to be able to coach our clients is going to be key. I think it's so important that we manage ourselves and create that space to prepare ourselves and our own emotions. And sometimes if we're not in the right state to be able to coach, we need to be mindful of that as well. Okay, so let's start off with coaching versus therapy. Now, really, if we look at the coaching space, and I think it's really important to just be very aware of where we are with our clients. So coaching, we're working on future progress, helping them move forward. We're also very much about asking. So as a coach, we are not offering therapy or counselling. Mentoring is where we're giving advice. So if we're doing clean coaching or pure coaching, we are just asking questions and helping our clients move forwards. So that I think this is important. I've actually printed off a copy of my agreement, which says that I'm not a licensed medical practitioner. I'm not a doctor, a psychiatrist, or a psychologist. So I'm very clear on what I am not. And also highlighting that coaching does not treat mental disorders. It's not a substitute for medical doctoring, psychiatric counselling, psychotherapy, substance abuse treatment, and will not be used in place of such therapy. So I think it's very important for us as coaches to really educate our clients on what we do and what we don't do. I did a talk recently about my coaching journey. And over the years, I think it's important as a coach that we keep adding and building onto our skills so we have more resources in our toolbox. But just being very mindful of when we're in the coaching space, we're not dealing with things such as trauma. And when things may pop up, we need to be able to refer to that. I've actually shared, I've asked Rania to share, there's an ICF resource about referring people on when it's outside of your scope. So I think it's important that for all of us working in this space, that we get very clear. I'm saying this ahead of talking about emotions, because emotions are everyday things. It's how we are human. So let's move on and define emotions. So the definition, emotions, it's a process. It's a particular kind of automatic appraisal influenced by our evolutionary and personal past, in which we sense that something important to our welfare is occurring. It's a set of psychological and emotional behaviors begins to deal with the situation. So it's our response. It's a process, something that we do. I think I quite enjoy highlighting to clients that emotions are something that we do. We don't have them. We don't have like a black bin bag full of anger or sadness or fear that we carry around with us. So it's something that we do in the moment, and it's our system bringing it into our awareness that something is occurring, and it's our response to it. So I like this definition by Paul Elkman, because I think it also links to a lot of his work in terms of emotional intelligence. Okay, so next I want to share with you the studies of Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor. It's worth YouTubing her and hearing her explain this in her own words. So when a person has a reaction to something in their environment, there's a 90-second chemical process that happens. So from the moment that first trigger, our first response to it, it takes 90 seconds for that chemical process to happen. So any remaining emotional response is that person choosing to stay in that emotional loop. Now, I know choosing is going to be very controversial, but think about it that if we have an emotion for more than 90 seconds, we're doing something to almost add more fuel onto the fire. So we'll have another thought, because when we think about something or when we're responding to something, then we get into it and we can be feeding it into as a loop. So there is this 90-second rule, and I truly believe that we are each responsible for our own state. So nobody else is responsible for that. It's about us and putting us back into the ability to be responsible for how we are feeling. Right, next, I want to share with you the Plutchik wheel. It's full of emotions, and here, the more intense the color, the more intense the emotion. And you can see the outer layers are a similar emotion, but are less intensity. Now, I like this one. I'm very visual. I like the color. But I think it's useful to connect with and see something such as anger. And I've put a note on the bottom here, the client's labels, the client's language is so important. So if somebody is experiencing that emotion of anger, then what's the intensity of that? How can they describe it? Because anger could be a rage, or it could be, I'm tinkled off. Or as my grandmother used to say, I'm vexed. And she'd only say it once and then she would move on, which I thought was always quite entertaining, and some great lessons there as well. The other thing that I'd like to highlight about the importance of clients' language, the word joy. Now, we should all be able to connect and relate to that emotion of joy. And recently, last year, I was doing an embodied wisdom program where I was experiencing and doing a lot of introspective work. The emotion of joy, I couldn't access it, which was interesting. And I turned it into a modeling project. I interviewed a friend of mine around joy and how does she do it, and where does it start? Where do those emotions begin? How does it intensify? What's her experience of joy? And I realized that I don't use the word joy, but I have 1,001 examples of happiness. So for me, happiness, I've got lots of different levels, lots of different layers. So when we're working with clients, asking them to describe the emotions, we need to listen into their words and their language and make sure that we're using their words and their language and uncovering their meanings and definition. How are they doing that? What does that feel like for them? Getting them to describe it and then exploring ways of either lessening it or increasing it. I think it's really useful to empower our clients in building up the emotions that they're going to find most useful in different situations. Okay, if we'd like to move on, the next one, again, Daniel Goleman, we looked at him yesterday when it came to emotional intelligence. So as a coach, we're really working to help our clients demystify and really understand themselves better, and also help them build their self-regulation. What can they do to improve regulating their own emotions and regulating their own behaviors? So here we're looking at increasing their self-awareness and then exploring how they can further develop their own self-regulation. We've also got the social awareness. So I use, it's called perceptual positions, asking clients to consider, put themselves in the shoes of other people. What's the impact of their emotions or their behaviors on others? It's a great one for exploring conflicts or disagreements. And I'd say that I use it so much. It's such a useful tool to help clients consider other people's perceptions. If you don't have that awareness of other people, then how can you manage relationships? So managing relationships includes being aware of your own behaviors, but also your own ways of regulating your behavior, being aware of the impact on others, and then bringing all of that into the relationship management. So it's another great model to actually explore where these emotions show up and how we can improve managing our emotions in different situations. Okay, the next one. So what can we do in terms of our skills as coaches? So what's important as a coach, and something that I think I only got real clarity on it was when I first discovered NLP back in 2001, building rapport. So rapport is something that's really natural when you're with people that you like. But then we can build rapport and learn the skills of building rapport to help working with different clients. Because I'm sure that we all attract clients that maybe we don't know them on a friendly level. We haven't had that natural rapport previously. So building rapport, there's a big difference between pacing and leading. So pacing your client's rapport, but then also leading. So this is when you change it could be your body language, you can use your voice tonality, you can even build rapport in the words and language that you use. So picking up and meeting your client. when it comes to matching and mirroring. Now, if you think about if a client is having very strong emotions, that it's not appropriate for you as a coach to match their emotions and get into the same state as them. So if a client has experienced anger or frustration, it's not going to help if you get into that state yourself. So there are different ways where we can increase the intensity simply by putting in more a sense of urgency, or using our voice tonality in ways where we're matching our client, and then we can bring them down with us, so then we can start leading. So we can pace our client's experience using different things. Sometimes matching and mirroring a client's specific state is not going to be useful for us. So just consider, if you've got a client who's experiencing strong emotions and you're relaxed and chilled out, it's going to be a total mismatch. So we need to bring and almost like pace the energy, but not get into the same states as our client. One of the key things here, how we can do this, it's about paying attention. So sensory acuity, using your eyes, your ears, your senses, and really tuning them into your client. Calibration skills is noticing the changes. So it's almost like you take a mental photograph of them, and then you take another one when things change, and then you've got a comparison. So this is really useful. If you think about when you first work with a client, they're talking about their problem. Paying attention to what does that problem look like for this person? So what are their facial expressions? How are they? What's all this information that I can get from them? And obviously at the end of the session, you want to make sure that your client is in a good, resourceful state. So you want to be able to see that. You want to see the difference. So if we move on to the next slide, because here we're going to just 7 basic emotions. So this is more work by Paul Ekman. So looking at the 7 basic: surprise, fear, sadness, happiness, disgust, contempt, and anger. It's good that we can understand what is that universal trigger, what's the function of that emotion. But then if we look more down into the posture, the sensation, and the vocal signals, all of these give us clues on what we can pay attention to. So remember that what we're doing is we're focusing on increasing our clients' awareness of these emotions. So talking about what you see, what you hear. Does their head move? Is it a vocal expression? So bringing that into the client's awareness is going to be key in helping them identify. So as an example for you, frustration was one that I used to have. In my previous corporate role, I was area training manager and I had to attend all of the general managers' meetings. And I realized quite quickly that general managers can talk a load of nonsense sometimes. And one of the best bits of feedback I ever got was, Wendy, when you disagree with somebody, it shows all over your face. And I said, what are you talking about? And it literally fell out of my face. So all of the things changed, and just having that reflected back on me, having that brought into my awareness, it's really helped me. So now when I'm working with senior executives, when I feel that they're starting to talk nonsense, I now have a different response. I've created a response where it started off being watch the face, Wendy. So now it's taking on and choosing a more relaxed, curious expression rather than that old expression of they're talking rubbish. So that's just one example of how you can, once something's in your awareness, how we can help people in terms of making better choices. So this is a useful one just to give you some cues onto what you can pay attention to. And when you really study sort of sensory acuity and developing your calibration skills, it's really useful as a client because that gives you more information to be able to share and reflect back to your client in terms of exploring and how that emotion is showing up. Okay, let's move on. When we think about the purpose of us as a coach, we really need to explore and help the client in terms of building their resources. So one of the key ones here, which is really useful, there are times when we want to encourage our client to associate into the resources a resourceful emotion and to dissociate from any unresourceful emotions. So I often get clients to step out of yourself, come over here, look back. So this is what we call perceptual positions. So creating a space, so we're taking them, giving them a quick exit from really feeling intense emotions that are unresourceful for them. There are different ways that we can do pattern interrupts. So we interrupt their pattern of how they are doing their emotions. Talking with some clients, creating a pause. You know, we've programmed ourselves that I get triggered and then I do this. Almost like I've got no control, it's just how I do it. It's how I respond. So it's creating a pause, that little space where they can choose a better response. So whether that's a pause button, different things work with different clients. It's really sort of working with them in terms of what's going to be the best resource for them. Breathing practices, even just taking a breath, creates a pause. So I think one of the key things about breathing practices is some emotions are stimulant emotions. So they go into sympathetic mode. So when it's a high emotion, an out breath will bring them down. If it's a suppressed emotion, like sadness, perhaps hurt, then it's more of a suppressed emotion, and taking an in-breath can lift them back up again. So I find breathing and awareness of breathing, because it's really useful in helping clients manage their state and use it as a resource of when they're feeling down, breathing in to breathe their energy back up again. But when they're at a sympathetic, when they're too stimulated in terms of emotion, breathing out is also going to be a very useful technique. Positive resource anchors. I've created a couple for myself. So anchoring is an NLP technique where we can stack and build resourceful positive states. I have this one where I squeeze these two fingers, because this I've stacked up feeling confident, feeling in control, feeling powerful. So all of these I've got stacked here. So before I do a talk, or if I'm doing a presentation, I can squeeze them off, and it helps me re-access all of those positive, resourceful emotions that I've built on here. Because I love hypnosis as well, I've also got anchors on my fingertips. So when I get onto a flight, I sit down. Part of my preparation is to just raise my fingers and then do a forced drop. And I've anchored that to put me into a totally relaxed state. When I got on a plane, I just want to get close to sleep mode. I want to completely relax, and I've set those up to help me. So anchoring is a great way of using emotional states as a resource for clients. I've spoken a little bit about perceptual positions as well. So helping a client by moving them around physically. I know one of my She's a master practitioner of NLP. She's a good friend of mine. She's also a teacher. She uses a lot of submodality work in terms of when she's talking to children, when their emotions are coming out. She will ask them to, okay, where is it? Where is it located in your body? What size is it? What shape is it? Describe it to me. What's the best way to get it out of your body? Sometimes it's scribbling on a piece of paper and then they screw up that paper and they throw it in the bin. Sometimes they want to run around the playground, but she will work with them to find out what's that like for them and what do they need to do? What would be the best thing that they could do right now? And she will stay with them and help them release that emotion until they're feeling good again. So she also does a lot of work in terms of getting her kids to experience joy and happiness and what's that like, and really crank it up. So associating them into some of the resourceful emotions. Now I've got a big exclamation mark here because scope of practice is so important. When we're working with clients, we need to make sure that we have some tools to help them. We may not have all of the tools that they need. So as I mentioned earlier, having a clear description of what you do, what you don't do is going to be very important. And also, I also include, I want to know their current health and medical. What other issues and symptoms are they experiencing? Because that might give me clues into what else could be going on with them. So also, we need to consider if somebody is experiencing emotions or even signs of trauma in their past, that's outside of the scope of coaching. So being able to refer people to the right person is going to be key. So checking in with your supervisor, checking in with supporting groups that you're part of as well. But do you have people that you in different disciplines that can help in different situations? I know that I was working with one client and he came to me with, it was very much, you know, this is what I want to work on. It's all about, he was going off to university and he wanted to maximize his ability to learn and absorb as much as he could. So that sounded like something that was very coaching oriented. Then when in the first session, he was suffering with suicidal thoughts. And it's like, whoa, hang on a minute. This is not coaching. This is mental health issues are outside the realm of coaching. So it's having that conversation with the client, but also clearly explaining what I do, what I don't do, what coaching is and what coaching isn't. So I was able to introduce him to somebody who worked in that space, and we've continued coaching as well, but he was also seeing the therapist as to help support him with that. So it can be a dual relationship if it's managed well. So finally, another slide I'd like to share with you, and I don't know the source of this. Recently, one of my coaches experienced a great loss. Her husband died very suddenly. And I'm not sure why, but this came into my awareness and I shared it with her. She said it was really useful. I've seen on many of the grief curves, you know, you start here and you experience this and then you move on and then you come up the other side. I hear many people talk about grief. They never get over it. They never get through it. They take it with them and it diminishes in terms of intensity. Now, I thought this was a useful visual just to see how many emotions can be all linking to one situation. So here it starts with the shock, the denial, the bargaining, getting angry, going into the past, going into all of those memories, and then eventually hitting acceptance, but you still slip back sometimes. As I say, I don't know where the source came from, but if you're working with somebody who's experienced a grief, and this has happened to me working with an executive client. He lost his daughter very suddenly, very tragically. And he was like, oh, how can I support him? First of all, I have to manage my own state. And I found a few tools similar to this in terms of this could be something, but he didn't want to go there. He did not want to work on it until about 3 or 4 months later. And that's when he sat down. He said, right, I've been strong for long enough. I've done all of my supporting for my family, for everything else. And we actually had a session. He needed to learn how to cry. So crying is another emotion. And it's for him, just to share with you, it all got stuck in his throat. It's like, okay, so what does he need to do? Exploring how he was doing that, there was no out breath. So he realized that when he started doing the out breath, he allowed himself to release those emotions. So that was a fascinating, totally out of context example for you. But just exploring, what does your client need to work on in terms of that self-regulation. So those are the slides I've prepared. The grief was an extra one. It's only because it's come up recently that I thought it would be a great opportunity to share. Yeah, I'm just saying, yes, a grief counsellor would be good, but it was something that he wanted to explore with me, and I do some other therapies as well. So it was outside of the scope of coaching, and we set it up as a separate session when he was ready. Okay, so open for questions. What questions do you have?
Thank you very much, Wendy. I've actually got a question to follow on from that, because again, having therapy skills as well as coaching skills, when you can help a client with therapy skills, and the therapy, sometimes they need a therapy session rather than a coaching session at that point in time. Mm-hmm. What's the best way that you can handle that with your client, and where does NLP come in? Is NLP therapy or coaching?
Okay, NLP can be both, depends on in what context you use it. NLP is really communication skills, and there are also some techniques as well. I would say, I mean, I've set it up in my client agreement for coaching. This is what I'm trained in. So these are my areas. It also says that I will not do timeline therapy, hypnosis, or embraining without their consent. And I will not bring that into the coaching session. If it's something that they'd like to explore, then I'm happy to set up another separate session where I'm wearing a different hat. So I keep it clean for me in terms of which hat am I wearing. Embraining actually works in the coaching space because it's all in the now. But with timeline therapy, hypnosis, some of the NLP change techniques, because I teach different leadership skills as well. Sometimes clients need a model or a little bit of education around something. So I will set that up outside of coaching. So I keep it clean. That's how I prefer to do it. Mario, what about you? What do you do?
Well, I do the same. Of course, is if it's the pain is related to the past, there's the area of therapy's area. So in that case, if you have the competencies and the skills, if you're educated to therapy, you can change that, as you said, Wendy, and try to work in specific sessions, therapy sessions and coaching sessions to talk about the present and the future. But if it's related to the past, it's more on the area of the therapy. And if you don't have the competencies and skills, I think that the best practice is to recommend the client to contact a therapist and work with. So it's very important to I absolutely agree with your presentation about the areas. So ICF define specific areas for coaching, and it has to be clear with the clients what is the area we can work in. And so it depends on the competencies of the person, but generally a coaching session is not a therapy session for me.
It's separate and different.
Very separate and very different.
Yeah. Yeah, the ICF resources, when to refer to different people's, when it's outside your area of scope, when it's not coaching, how to refer as well is also mentioned in that article.
Yeah, yeah. But it's true that NLP at some level is could be a therapeutic approach if you are educated to. You can tell the client very clearly that you're changing the area because you are an educated psychotherapist. But if you're not, it's better to recommend to contact a therapist.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Natalia, would you like to give us your view on this? Just turn the camera off. Hello. You're on mute.
Me?
Yeah. So as a coach, what's your view on this therapy versus coaching discussion?
So for me, obviously, it's I'm not a therapist. I don't have the skills and the education to deliver therapy. So for me, obviously, the most important to differentiate and to make a conscious, ethical decision on the spot. Can I help or can I work with this client with the coaching techniques? Or should I refer him or her to someone who can give the help otherwise? So that's my take.
Maybe Rania, excuse me, maybe I would like to insist on the ICF Code of Ethics.
Exactly.
Because the ICF Code of Ethics is very clear, is very well done. So I recommend everybody to read it seriously. I mean, we read the Code of Ethics as the competencies, ICF competencies, the more often like limitations to our work. But I think that it's the contrary. The Code of Ethics and the competencies are the permission we have as coaches. So maybe it's interesting to change the position when they just talk about the perceptual position, maybe to change the position, the perceptual position on the Code of Ethics and the competencies, and read the whole system like a permission system to the coaches. And after it is very clear that our area as coaches is not the therapy one.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I share the Code of Ethics as well, because it is published on the ICF website. So you can share it with your clients and say, these are the Code of Ethics that I adhere to, which gives you credibility as a coach. So we have a question, how do you actually, so we're talking about communications and, the NLP is a communications modality. So how do you communicate to your client in an ethical way that they may need a therapist rather than coaching?
For me, going back to I think my first slide, if it's stuff from the past, if it's trauma, PTSD, if it's any negative events in their past that they need to address, that's outside the realm of coaching. So those would be some good areas. And that's why I started off by sharing my client agreement. What I do, what I don't do, what coaching is, what coaching isn't. So it's coaching does not treat mental disorders and is not a substitute for medical doctoring, psychiatric counselling, psychotherapy, substance abuse treatment, and do not use it in place of such therapy. So that's on the agreement, which I share with them in advance, but I also review it. So having that as a resource to go back to them and say, right, the agreement that you signed, you agreed to this. And while you're talking about, now this has come up as an issue or something that you'd like to address, that is outside of coaching. Now, I can help you with that by referring you to somebody that deals in that specific area. I also mentioned earlier that as coaches, part of our journey is to keep learning. If you've done a 2-hour online course and you've got a certificate saying you're a coach, which is possible, unfortunately, that does not give you the depth of skills. So keep adding, whether it's CBT therapy, whether it's NLP, whether it's timeline therapy, whether it's hypnosis, whether it's there's so many different things out there that can complement what you do, but it can also give you even more. In terms of when you're coaching people, I always say that NLP gives me a toolbox of skills when the client, working with the client, when the water gets deep, how are you going to help them? Because you have a responsibility for making sure that client is safe and you don't want to leave them hanging. So you need to be able to either refer them on or to say, right, I'm also certified in this technique or in this modality, if that's something that you'd like to explore. And then you open up a different agreement outside of the coaching space. So it's really be clear on what you do, what you don't do, and know your limits and boundaries.
So I've got a follow-up question for that.
May I say something?
Mario, I think it'd be good if you can answer the follow-up question and encompass that as well, because Erika has said if someone's got PTSD or another issue and doesn't want to go anywhere else, so your client's trusting you, they're not open up to therapy, you're their coach, do you continue seeing them and being open to the fact that you're not the right therapist, or do you stop seeing them? What do you do in that situation when you're kind of cornered with the client that trusts you and won't go anywhere else? Mario, gave you the more complex one.
Yeah, thank you. No, of course, yeah. I step back a little bit, maybe can help. For example, there is different understanding of the recommendation to contact the therapist. In Europe, in some countries in Europe, there is a big resistance to go to contact a therapist to make a psychotherapy. So the first thing I do, if I feel it's necessary, is to recommend to contact the medical doctor, the family doctor, to make a biological report and check if everything's going well, and then to ask the doctor what is the best option. Because the medical competencies are necessary for a lot of people in terms of trust. So I'm not an MD, so another doctor. And it's important for some clients to have this trust on a person that is a specialist. So I can tell that I had an interesting case some weeks ago. Somebody contacted me to be accompanied as a coach for an addiction problem, alcohol addiction. And the first thing I said that don't work on it. I'm not a specialist, but somebody recommend you to me, and I know that you're a very good coach and you can work with me and I trust you. And the person was very convinced. I don't know what she knew about me, but she was very convinced of my abilities. And it was very hard to convince her that I'm not the right person, but I did it because I'm not the right person. I'm not a specialist in addiction. So it is a case of trust that is not so well positioned, because you can trust me, but if I'm the wrong person, I have to tell it. And it's important to tell it very clearly. And it's not a matter of trust, it's a matter of competencies. And so if me as a coach, I feel that my client is trusting me, maybe and feeling a huge trust to me, and I feel I am not the right person to solve the problem, I feel that I must respect that trust, and tell that I'm not the right person to feed the trust. So,
and I think there's a possibility as well, if they are very resistant, that you can actually coach them around finding the right person and move them forward in that way, that you're supporting them, but without being the person that is providing the therapy. So, you know, again, zooming out a little bit with the client and adopting a different position, still supporting them. So rather than stop seeing them as a way of not supporting them, but actually looking at that resistance and how they can move themselves forward.
I had people that told me, I don't want to go to a psychotherapist. And I said, okay, so our experience will be limited. Because I'm not a psychotherapist. So it's important to put the frontiers, the frame.
Absolutely.
It's seeing the right for the right problem or issue. You don't go to the dentist if you have a verruca.
Of course.
Wrong part of the body, the wrong part of the mind.
And most of all, you don't go to the dentist if you have a problem with your car.
Okay. If you can put your questions in the chat, please, it helps us make sure we don't miss any at all. I can see a couple of hands up, but if you can just type your questions out for me. We are on the hour at the moment, so we're going to continue for a few more minutes and answer any questions that are coming up. We will also share that in the recording, so you can have the answer in the recording, and that will be included. So you're welcome to stay or welcome to go. Chin has got a good question for the team. Is it necessary, do you think, to learn psychology foundation to be a good coach?
I can share my personal experience. I started a psychology course a long time ago. It did my head in. It was so academic with Freud and Jung, and read this book and read this book, that I really, really struggled. I put it down at that time, and then I kind of got into psychology by coming through the NLP route to really kind of, and it's much more my kind of learning. So do you need to learn psychology? No, maybe. You need to have a good understanding of, you know, the thinking processes, how your thinking impacts how you feel impacts how you behave, all of that impacts the results that you get. And yeah, I discovered all of that through NLP. That was my route. And I'm biased.
I think it's important to understand the personality and the behaviors of the cognitive, also the cognitive. Now, I take another way. So, to be a great coach, you have to know the human being, I think, to understand the human being. And correctly understand the human being, it means for me, respect the cartography of the personality of the other person. So in my case, for example, I'm a master practitioner, NLP master practitioner, hypnosis practitioner. I've studied the transactional analysis, and I got ready to educate myself to show strategic therapies, the method of Palo Alto, and I've studied in the Paul Ekman Institute. But all the whole pathway is not to be a therapist. It's just to understand people, to better understand people, to have a not judgment position. So, and to understand the positive intention behind each behavior. So, I think that the knowledge of psychological, of applied psychology approaches can be interesting and rich, but you don't need to go to a faculty, psychology faculty to be a coach.
No.
Thank you very much. And one last question, I think, before we wrap up is, sorry, bear with me. Would the client be able to differentiate and feel the relation is different between your role as a coach and as a therapist, even if you've indicated it's a different role? You can arrange different sessions and have a separate therapist agreement. Do you arrange different sessions and have a separate therapist agreement?
It depends. So if something came up and maybe I was going to use timeline therapy or something, then I would do the whole briefing for the client briefing on that, because it's a different technique. And so they need to know what that process is. So, and yes, I need more of a detailed personal history in advance before I can do that. So yes, I would set it up as a follow-up session. Yeah, I think it's just being very clear with my client, you know, this is what we're doing and this is coaching. Okay, now, all right, this has come up. There are some different things here. If you want to explore it with this, or, you know, that's not coaching. It takes us out and beyond. So just keeping them aware of what we're doing, I think, is useful. If you're staying in the coaching space, then you just continue coaching. But if something comes up, and just keep the conversation flowing, keep the client aware of what it is that you are doing.
Yeah, I agree, totally agree.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Wendy and Mario, Natalia, Tracy. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We can't do these without you. It's been absolutely fantastic this week. It's the first time we are running these seminars for International Coaching Week, so we're absolutely delighted by the feedback and the turnout. Please give us feedback in our feedback form, because we're going through everything to see how we can do more of these. If you've got suggestions for topics that you'd like us to cover, we're really happy putting on some more webinars outside of International Coaching Week and moving forward. So tomorrow is our seminar. Our 5th seminar is going to be George that's delivering his content, his keynote. Thank you very much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow, and have a great week. Have a great day. Bye.